We will call our board meeting to session. Roll call, please.
Chairman McClendon.
Here.
Vice Chairman Robinson.
Here.
Mrs. Hill.
Here.
Mrs. Jones. Mr. Perez.
Here.
Mr. Smith. Mrs. Sermon.
Here.
Mr. Walker.
Here.
Dr. Wingate.
Here.
Mr. Macon.
Here.
Superintendent Dr. Robertson.
Here.
Okay, we do have several amendments to the agenda. First amendment will be executive session. We will be having an executive session. The second will be discussion of the interlocal agreement regarding facilities, which will go above the consent agenda. And then we have delegations to add. Rebecca Day and William Bills the second. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Hill.
Yes.
Mrs. Jones. Mr. Perez.
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson.
Yes.
Mr. Smith. Mrs. Sermon.
Yes.
Mr. Walker.
Yes.
Dr. Wingate.
Yes.
Chairman McClendon.
Yes. Okay, then we will move into executive session. We were hot back there. Okay, we will return to our regular session with our pledge to the flag and meditation by Russell Meredith, the Dawn School Program Coordinator.
So just speaking to this. Good evening. If I can get everybody to please stand. Salute. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. When I first got here, I noticed that what was up there kind of relates to what I'm going to talk about. For those of you who may not know me, my name is Russell Meredith, and I am the new coordinator for the Dawn program. I've got a
Mr.
little.
Meredith, can you get closer to the mic?
Oh,
Get
yes, sir.
closer to you.
Sorry.
I'm having trouble here.
Is that better?
Perfect.
Hey, I can even hear me. I don't know about that. Again, my name is Russell Meredith, and I'm the new coordinator for the Dawn program. According to legend, the ancient Greeks and Egyptians believed in a special bird, the phoenix. The phoenix was known to obtain new life by dying and rising from its ashes. The phoenix is the Dawn School's program's mascot. We serve students who are working every day to rise from the ashes, just like we would hope that we all can rise from our ashes to become better people. So that's all I've got to say. And again, like I said, I'm sorry. It reminded me of similar to what's written behind you, school board members. That's kind of a creed like ours. So have a good night. Thank you.
Okay, we will move on to our exemplars of excellence, starting with Dr. Robertson.
Thanks, Chairman McClendon. I'm here to recognize our Superintendent Student Advisory Council members. I'm going to start with our chair, Mr. Jamal Macon, Jr., who cooked lunch for me the other day. I didn't know he was a chef, too, but apparently he's a chef. I saw his mentor here earlier. It's a really good lunch. But Jamal is the chair of the Superintendent Student Advisory Council and the student member of the Board of Education. He's a senior at the Erlanger Institute of Health and Innovation at the Howard School. He's been part of that institute for 4 years and has served as a student ambassador each of those 4 years. Jamal has used his time at Howard to develop his talents in public speaking, development of presentations, healthcare knowledge, and athletics, specifically in football, track and field, and wrestling, where he hurt his shoulder earlier this year. His accomplishments include Mr. Howard for 2022. It's really impressive. He was a one-year member of the Hustling Tigers VEX robotics team, one-year participant of Omega Lamplighters, a 4-year participant and leader of the Lookout Mountain Conservancy, 3-year member and vice president of the Howard Tiger Way leadership team. Jamal will be attending Waynesburg University in the fall with a major in biochemistry and pre-med. His future career goal is to become a neurosurgeon. Tonight, we want to recognize Jamal for your service to the Superintendent Student Advisory Council and for serving as our student board chair. Mr. Jamal Macon. Jamal, you get the floor. Do you want to say anything?
I just want to, hello, there we go. I just want to thank everyone. Honestly, I haven't been able to attend a lot of the meetings, but being at the meetings I was at, I learned how to step back. I learned how to listen. I learned how to, get a full understanding of everything. You come in a place thinking that you know exactly how it's going to work and you know all the routes to it, but honestly, that's not how it goes. And, I want to thank Riley and Susanna and Sandra there for me the whole time, because I was very busy this year. And the whole time they were there for me, we kept in touch, and they were the reason why I was able to continue with it. Thank everyone.
Yeah. Thanks, Jamal. And Riley, didn't see you. I know you're here somewhere.
Back.
Come on. So Ms. Riley Bellamy is the vice chair of the Superintendent's Advisory Council and has participated on the council for the last 3 years. She is the valedictorian of her graduating class at Hickson High School and is active in many student organizations. Riley has participated in the Mayor's Youth Council. She has served as an officer in the National Honor Society, the Key Club, FBLA, and the 2022 senior class. In addition to leading social media for Hickson High School and North River, she attended Girls State and is a commended National Merit Scholar. It's pretty impressive. Seriously. On top of Riley's astounding academic successes, she has participated in orchestra for 4 years and been a vital player on the girls' volleyball team for the past 4 years. Outside of school, she participates in student leadership cohort at Ridgedale Baptist Church, works as an assistant wedding coordinator for several renowned wedding coordinators, and has raised money for mission trips by starting her own cookie business called the Bellamy Bakery with her sister. Riley's done a tremendous job this year just helping us lead meetings, but I was at the Hickson High School Hall of Fame induction the other day, and to listen to her speak in front of a large crowd was it's super impressive for a 12th grader. So Riley, just want to say thank you for your service and for everything you did this year for the Student Advisory Council.
Okay, I'm going to announce our new chairperson for the SSAC, Elora Davis, the incoming chair for the Superintendent Student Advisory Council. She is a rising senior at STEM School Chattanooga, where she takes honor level classes and is a dual enrollment in courses at Chattanooga State. She has participated in the Electric Chair Club, Volleyball Club, and Ministry Club. She's also selected as a junior to be a leader of STEM's esteemed heads of house. She has 4 siblings and enjoys journaling and spending time relaxing by the water in her limited free time. I look forward to working with you. Oh, he looks forward to working with you and the other members of the council in the coming year.
Awesome. Congratulations to everyone. Next, we will move on to the Dr. Vance with his exemplars of excellence.
Chairman McClendon and board members, Dr. Robertson, chiefs, it is so good to be here tonight, and I'm so proud to be able to recognize Howard High School. Jamal, you've represented us well this year, man. I'm so excited to see you. We've got all of Howard High School's administration here tonight, along with several teachers and probably about 30 Howard High School students. And so excited about this opportunity to present to you on behalf of Howard High School. I would enjoy and appreciate the fact to have the Dr. Leandria Ware, Dr. Mitchell, and Miss Howard 2022, Miss Wakia Clay, come and represent us at the podium. Wakia, come on up. this is really special. They're being recognized for being an RTI B school in the state of Tennessee at the gold level. The Tennessee Department of Education, along with the Behavioral Supports Project that coincides with Tennessee Department of Education, is recognizing them as a model of demonstration school at the gold level. There's 150 schools across the state of Tennessee that are recognized at the bronze, silver, and gold level. There is one high school in the state of Tennessee that's recognized at the gold level, the Howard High School.
Good evening, Chairman McClendon and members of the board. I am Walkia Clay, Miss Howard 2022. I would like to say thank you very much for taking the time to recognize students, faculty, staff, and the administration of the amazing Howard High School. Being the only school in the state of Tennessee to receive the gold level award status is exhilarating to say the least. We are so grateful for all of the support from Hamilton County Schools and our entire school community for stepping up to help us always be our very best. Due to our positive school culture and climate, active student engagement, and overall school connectedness, we will always soar. Once again, thank you very much. Stay strong and go Tigers.
It's called Train Them as You Raise Them. She said everything that needs to be said. Again, thank you all so very much. Battling allergies and all that good stuff, but I'm not contagious. Thank you all so very much for recognizing us tonight. Thank you all for all of your support, all that you do for us. We do owe our leadership students an incentive trip tonight, and so we're going to quietly exit ourselves out of here. But thank you all so very much. We appreciate everyone.
I will say before you all go, I just wanted to say how proud I am of the school for all that you've done and all that you've accomplished. I also wanted to recognize Representative Hakeem for being here tonight, who is a major supporter of the Howard School. Thank you for being here, and thank you for continuing to support public education throughout our state. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I apologize. I meant to recognize State Representative Yusuf Hakeem because he is here tonight just to recognize us and be supportive of Howard School. So thank you for being here tonight. And the NAACP came out to support us tonight as well.
That will move us on to presentations. Dr. Robertson.
Yes, thanks, Chairman McClendon. Not so much a presentation, but wanted to put in front of you, we're going to be doing some press around the 100-day report of my transition. As you remember, when I was interviewing, presented you with a 100-day plan, and actually next Friday is my 100th day on the job, so made it 100 days. But here is a report that basically goes through, reminds you of some of the goals that we set there and some of the accomplishments on the front page. Really want to bring your attention to the middle section. We had several transition committee teams that have been working over the past number of weeks to put together some challenges that we are facing as a district, and then some recommendations for how we can move forward. There's a lot of great information from these committees, and at the bottom there's a thank you to all the people that were represented on these committees, and so want to make sure that we publicly recognize them and for the work that they did. What I also want to bring your attention to is really what I think this middle section leads to and really is a launching pad for. If you go to the back page, there's a little information about strategic planning and some ideas that we have in terms of timeline for strategic planning and how this information that we've learned in our 100-day transition, I say 100-day because I see it as this team's 100-day transition, what we've learned and how that information can be moved or used as we move into strategic planning. It seems like a year is a long way away, but to do strategic planning well, we have to get started in the next few weeks. And so you'll see some recommendations in terms of June regarding some different sections of the strategic plan and input that we'll need from you. I really would like to get some dates on the calendar for work sessions. I know you're busy. I know that we're busy, but I think it's extremely important for us to get some dates set over the summer and into the fall for us to have some work sessions that are explicitly dedicated to strategic planning. Any questions?
Ms. Robinson.
I think that's it. Thank you so much, and congratulations on well, almost. You're not there yet, but you're almost at your 100-day mark. Let's see if you make it till Friday.
I got you.
There's no special called meeting that I'm proposing. But actually, actually, though, you bring up something that I was thinking about. I wanted to just mention it to the board on that topic about getting some dates on the calendar, maybe for this fall, especially with the fact that after August we're going to have a very different board and now a larger board. I think it could be really smart and good for all of us, including our new board members, to maybe go ahead and get a date on the calendar for maybe a TSBA training, maybe like a day-long training or a half-day. We have to get our credits anyways. Maybe this would be a way for us to wipe out our credits as board members, for the training that we do annually. But I do know that they have training around just kind of in general, how does the board and the district work together? I think it would be a good platform or springboard for starting our strategic work. And then I think it would actually be great, though, if we did maybe go ahead and start looking at some dates for strategic planning, because I think that the more that we can get on our calendar for that work, the better, even though we know that we're not going to really start that work until after the August elections. So I don't know how everybody else feels, at least about the training piece, but I know TSBA would come here and do that training. So I don't know if anyone has an opinion on that. I'd love to hear it. But in general, I think that we should kind of help set the stage for our new board members coming in, that there's going to be a path to having a really good understanding of what your role is as a board member, and how we all get on the same page out the gate on next steps for our strategic planning.
If it is good with you guys as an administration, we can take back and map out some strategic work that we need to get done and wrap it around with onboarding of new board, and go ahead and put some proposed at least time frames for meetings, and then circulate that among you guys for more conversation.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Yeah.
Any other discussion? Okay.
Just again,
Response.
Dr. Robertson, sorry. Thank you. 100 days, you jumped in at an important and crucial time for many reasons, and I just want to say to you and the team that you've surrounded yourself. A leader is only as good as the team around them, and I always say hire people smarter than you, and you'll look smart. And you did that. So no,
7
thank
of
you.
them.
No, you have a great team. So I just look forward to whatever comes beyond the 100 days. So thank you very much.
Thank you. That will move us into our Future Ready 2023 Efficient and Effective Operations presentation.
Okay, good evening. Thank you, Chairman and board members, for this opportunity. Tonight, we will do an update on accelerating student achievement, creating a community of belonging.
Can y'all advance?
Nope.
There we go. Something moved. Try now.
Okay, we remain committed to our just cause that we've stated. Although it is a courageous, very stretch goal, we are very committed to that, and equity is all through this goal. I'm sure that you all are very familiar with our equity triangle that I have displayed here, where we see equity in 3 big buckets of work: opportunity and access, whole child support, and advocacy. However, this evening we will focus on our whole child support, the preventive parts and proactive, and advocacy and response. Going to start with some national trends. The state of Tennessee actually provides us with a definition of bullying. And our focus tonight is going to be on bullying. The state of Tennessee defines bullying as unwanted aggressive behavior that is repeated and is an imbalance of power. Nationally, we know that the trends here: cyberbullying is on the rise, face-to-face verbal bullying is decreasing, as well as physical bullying is on the decrease. There's a decrease among boys in bullying behaviors, but there is an increase among girls in bullying behavior. Young students report being bullied significantly higher than older students. And when students are surveyed, when on the survey, bullying is clearly defined, more students self-report, as when bullying is just the name bullying is on that report. Now, at this time, Karen Glenn will come before us and talk about the trends that Hamilton County is currently seeing.
Thank you, Dr. Drake. When we look at our district-specific data, you'll notice that from 2015 to 2020, that there was a significant decrease in the number of incidences, and that was by a rate of about 50%. And it's important to note that even though that we were very pleased to have those numbers, it's important to note that if there's one child that's mistreated, that's one child too many. So we don't just look at this as data. We work very closely with school administrators so that we could assist them with those specific situations that develop. Then we ran into the pandemic in March of 2020. There were so many things that happened which we did not anticipate. First of all, student routines were disrupted. And we know that consistent, predictable schedules are crucial for the emotional development of our students. Social interactions were restricted to 6 feet apart and face coverings. And this had a significant impact on the quality and the quantity of the trainings that we had impact with the 5 years prior to that. Homelessness of our families has skyrocketed. And in our district right here, we've had an increase in students that have stated that their home situation has been altered, and that's either through the pandemic, through the tornado, or loss of employment. And grief and loss support has increased as well. And these are no longer facilitated just by our school counselors, but our school social workers are involved in facilitating those support. So I share all of that with you because it's important to understand that the levels of trauma for all of our students is undeniable. And if we're going to figure out how we got here with the trends that we've seen in the last few months, we've got to understand, first of all, how did we get here? And what things do we have to do to enhance the trainings that we've done before, and to add to that what needs to be done so that we can get those outcomes that we all desire. And so Patricia Russell is going to share with us what that looks like.
Thank you, Karen. All right, so let's revisit that equity triangle. And we want to take a look at the triangle through the lens of whole child supports. Our whole child supports is committed to proactively creating a culture and climate of care for our students and belonging. We all know that when students feel seen, when they believe that they're heard, and they believe that they belong, they have a greater chance of being academically successful and thriving in school. So what does this look like for our district? We use a systemic framework that allows us to proactively address the needs of our students. Again, think about prevention work. So this is a preventative system and an equitable approach for addressing and responding to behavior. This is the framework that we use across all levels in our educational system, and it allows us to align our resources in such a way that we're meeting the academic as well as the non-academic needs of our kids. You should have in front of you a form or a page that looks like this, very similar to what you see on the screen. This page here shows you the resources as well as the practices organized by tiers. So if we start to think about what our strategies look like in a school, what it looks like in a classroom, what our trainings are, and our district supports are, you can see some of those things on this page, and I'm just going to talk through a few of them. Implementation of preventative practices in a classroom could look like a classroom meeting or a student conference. If you go to your school section, we just saw Howard receive that award for gold status of implementing a culture of care in their building. When we look at RTI2B, that's what that was. So we're building school teams throughout our district to make sure that we are being strategic, and we're making sure that we are thinking critically about how we're addressing our students and creating a culture of care and climate for them. Trainings are implemented throughout the district, again for RTI2B. That's being intentional about creating these positive climates, as well as we have trainings through STARS. So one of the things that I'm really excited to talk to you about is our district support. So we do have a kindness campaign, but we're going to kind of elevate that on next school year as we kick off 1 million acts of kindness. So we will have a kindness campaign that will start in the fall, where we're going to challenge our students and our school staff and our families to participate in 1 million acts of kindness. This was a campaign that took place in Anaheim, California, and they were actually able to reduce their bullying infractions as well as to cut their suspensions in half. So we're looking forward to implementing this campaign. We're wanting to elevate student voice around kindness. We want to make sure that we're recognizing their kind behaviors, and we're acknowledging that. And then we're going to be tracking all of these efforts through our data and research department. We're going to do all of these efforts, again, to make sure that we are elevating kindness, because we know that that's an effective way to reduce bullying and harassment behaviors. So I'm going to turn it back over to Karen Glenn, and she's going to talk to you about the equity part of the triangle that addresses our responses and student advocacy.
Thank you, Patricia. When an incident is brought to the attention of the school administrators, there is a scripted response that we use, and it begins with the bullying investigation form. This document enables us to understand specifically what our district trends are. Is this a misuse of technology? Is it based on gender or gender identity issues? Maybe it's based on race or national origin or one's disability. We collect this information, and we know where we need to direct resources where there are deficiencies. There's also a bullying investigation flowchart that gives administrators procedures and timelines about what happens in that process. Within 48 hours, the investigation should be initiated. Within 20 days, a safety plan is put in place. When and where are the parents to be contacted? And these are the parents of both parties. And how is it documented in our data system? And so this information enables us to determine how we're going to move forward with the advocacy piece, for which Dr. Drake is going to now explain to us.
Thanks, Karen. I included this as a part of our response. For years, we have had an anonymous reporting tool. However, some of our students came to us and stated that it was outdated. So listening to them and responding to them, they stated that we should have a QR code for this. And so we have created this QR code, and we're currently piloting it in some of our schools here locally, and we will have this in all of our schools in the upcoming school year. Also, a part of our responsiveness, that advocacy. Karen talked to us about the flow and the investigation and the process that we currently use. And in reviewing that, we want to really elevate a part that we are going to be adding this school year. We will be investigating, and once that investigation is complete, then, and it has been confirmed, then the family will be provided an advocacy case manager that will walk them through the process of actually mediating the situation, repairing the relationship there at the school, and returning that student safely to the school with the supports that are stated in that safety plan. So, and then they will continue to check in with the family throughout the school year. So I really want to draw your attention there to those advocacy case managers that we will be adding to our process this upcoming school year. Now, moving forward and wrapping this up, this presentation up, just kind of wanted to review and talk about our next steps. We will continue to use current trends to guide our preventative services and programs that we implement in the district. We will use best strategies for preventing cyberbullying within the district. We're creating a bullying committee that will actually review, revise, and reaffirm our policies and procedures surrounding bullying, developing that student response and advocacy framework, and bringing that forth to you all in August. And we will enhance our training for our entire Hamilton County School staff with a focus on our reporting expectations of all of our staff. And we will launch our kindness campaign district-wide in the fall of 2022. Now, at this time, if you all have any questions, we will be more than happy to answer them.
Ms. Jones.
So, first, thank you for the presentation, and I like as a social worker, I like the whole advocacy case management piece. My question is, will that person, that case manager, become the touch point or the contact person once the child is back in the school? Is that the person that the family should reach out to initially?
Yes.
Going forward once they return?
Yes.
Okay.
We'll make that connection. Once it is confirmed and the investigation is complete, I'll get that information and we will make that connection. And they will continue to check in with them throughout the school year, making sure that that safety plan is carried out in the school and that the child is feeling safe and that their needs are being met.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Okay. Right.
We're not, this is, yeah, this have delegations.
Okay.
Yeah. Ms. Thurman.
Yes, I just was wondering on this, who's on the bullying committee and who are these people that are going to be monitoring these situations? Is it going to be one of you guys? Is it going to be someone else who's going to be the advocate for the family? Who is that? Who will that be?
The bullying committee will be a group, and the parents I've talked to have made a recommendation. I think is a good recommendation, is that we have a parent on that committee. Okay. We haven't put that committee together yet. The case managers, we're again, since we're trying this out, we're not going to add positions. What our plan is to go to some retired administrators that have been in the system, that have good relationships with families, that know the communities, and that have the knowledge of how things work to do this. So I'll throw her name out there. She won't care. But Jane Reynolds, we've already talked to Jane to say, would you be willing to come back and work, you know, sometimes it may not be any hours a week, but sometimes it may be 15 to 20 hours a week, and just pay them on a stipend to support this. And then, you know, if we move forward and this is working well, then next year it may be that we come and ask for actual full-time positions.
Okay. Thank you.
See any other lights on?
Mr. Chairman.
Oh,
Sorry.
Mr. Smith.
Thank you for your work, and I got to tell you, the last couple of weeks I've been kind of sitting around a lot. And my wife decided to clean out this big stack of papers that I had sitting by my recliner. And I found a letter from 2001 from Judy Wilson. And had a picture, and I'm sitting in this old beat-up old station wagon. Do you remember that? And there was an ambulance, not an ambulance, a casket in the back of that station wagon. And so I'm sitting in that station wagon, and Judy Wilson's in the driver's seat. And do you remember all that? So I just share all that just to say I so appreciate y'all's work. This bullying thing and behaviors in schools so concerns me. And boy, I wish I, had a magic pill that we could give kids and families to fix all this. And I'm sure it doesn't exist, but I just know how hard you work, and I know your heart, and I know what you're trying to get done, and I just wanted to publicly say how much I appreciate you, and I just think it's just this is a great start, and we're not going to fix this in a day, but boy, it's just something that we gotta stop, we gotta fix it some kind of how, and so I just want to thank you. I thank all of you, but you in particular. When I saw that letter, and it just made me think of you.
Ms. Jones.
One more thing. I don't know if everybody else has a question. I want to say this before this ends, because I won't have another chance to say this, I'm sure. I was scrolling through Facebook, and I saw a post that said Mrs. Karen Glenn was going on a long vacation, a well-deserved vacation. And I want to say thank you. Mrs. Glenn was my STARS coordinator when I was in middle school and high school. And because of Mrs. Glenn and her team and her work, I think that I'm a better person because of what we were able to share. But there were programs back then that did those kinds of things and taught us how to treat one another or embellish what our parents had already told us in our village. So I want to thank Mrs. Glenn publicly as one of her former students and now colleagues, because I know that we're all human. Nobody ever gets it all right. But what I do know is that this lady right here has done all that she knows to do to keep the children of Chattanooga City and Hamilton County Schools safe, because I had her in both. And I want to say thank you on behalf of the students of Hamilton County and the families of Hamilton County. My mom was like, what? She's retiring? But nevertheless, what?
Yeah.
That's the long vacation, Jenny. Ain't nobody coming back from vacation.
What?
But nevertheless, and I don't want to deter from the top, but I do want to say that to you because STARS was fun, but it taught us a lot. Just like DARE was fun and it taught us a lot. I mean, some of those programs just need to come back. Sorry. But I want to say thank you, Mrs. Glenn.
Ms. Thurman.
Yeah, just given some of the reports that we've had of late, it's hard to believe that bullying has gone down that much. I don't know if we just reclassified some of the things that used to be bullying or what, because it's certainly not what I'm hearing on my end.
It's actually, it shows it's on the rise.
It's on the rise again.
I think that looking at that chart, what you've got to realize is that
COVID?
2 years in a row were impacted by the pandemic.
Yeah,
Last
I
year, we had
guess.
30% of kids
Okay.
that were doing at home.
That's what I
this
started to say.
year,
I
so-
think there's probably because the kids weren't in school. But I don't want to do it tonight because I don't want to be here all night. My grandson's playing his last baseball game tonight, so for the season. So I hope to get out of here in time to see it. I don't know if I will or not. At some point, I would like to see some kind of data, since we're eating up with data about everything, about whether this restorative justice and some of this other methods that we're using for discipline prove that it works. I would like to see that. I'm not sure that it does. But at some point, I would like to see all the ways that, whether it's peer mediation, restorative justice, or any of the other things we have, if we have data showing that has been effective, I would certainly like to see it. Thank you.
Ms. Hill.
Well, I didn't know you were retiring. I was also going to try to be quiet because I know I have colleagues that have many things ahead of them this evening. Thank you so much for your work and your leadership, Karen, but everyone. You know, as I have watched the bullying trends and the bullying data over my 4 years on the board, I have, you know, noticed from meeting to meeting the downward trend. And then when we had the student supports go away because of COVID, we saw this uptick. So I for one, see that the data has been showing itself for quite some time. There was a woman who tried to ask a question. I'll just point out that, you know, we have a specific agenda and it's not a time for a back and forth Q&A, but I'm sure these staff members will stay and answer any questions for you after the meeting. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Nope. Okay, that will bring us down to our board member disclaimer statement. As always, we'll start with Ms. Thurman and work our way down.
Hold on just a minute. Let me find it. There we go. Okay. I declare that I have a relative who works for the school system, and that the board's vote on the budget and policies on here may have effect on my relative's employment. Even so, I hereby certify that I will cast my vote in the best interest of the school system.
I declare that I have a relative who works for the school system, and that the board's vote on budget, policy, etc. may have an effect on my relative's employment. Even so, I hereby certify that I will cast my vote in the best interest of the school system.
I declare that I have a relative who works for the school system, and that the board's vote on budget, policies, etc. may have an effect on my relative's employment. Even so, I hereby certify that I will cast my vote in the best interest of the school system.
I declare that I have relatives, plural, in the school system, and that the board's vote on budget, policies, etc. may have an effect on my relative's employment. Even so, I hereby certify that I will cast my vote in the best interest of the school system.
I declare I have a relative who works for the school system, and that the board's vote on budget, policy, etc. may have an effect on my relative's employment. Even so, I hereby certify that I'll cast my vote in the best interest of the school system. I will also say, after this next discussion, I am going to leave. I have a wedding in less than 48 hours.
Woohoo!
Happy wife, happy life. I'm
She ain't
learning
your
that.
wife yet.
Well,
I'm just playing. Just playing.
I got to
Just
get there
playing.
first.
Just playing.
But excuse my absence. I will head out after this next discussion, and Ms. Robinson will take over.
I declare that I have a relative who works for the school system, and that the board's vote on budget, policies, etc. may have an effect on my relative's employment. Even so, I hereby certify that I will cast my vote in the best interest of the school system.
Okay, we're good there. We added to the agenda the discussion of the interlocal agreement. You should have gotten that yesterday in your inbox from Mr. Bennett. If you haven't looked it over, it is in front of you, printed out. This is following our conversation on Monday at our special called meeting over my request for $10 million in reoccurring revenue to go strictly to maintenance and facilities. We had a budget meeting on Tuesday. Is that right, Ms. Jones? Tuesday. Sorry, my days are running together. On Tuesday with the county commission and the mayor, the idea was floated about an interlocal agreement for two reasons. Ms. Thurman brought up in the past our budget. When they did give us more money, the money went into different areas and not facilities. This is kind of the only way that we can guarantee the money goes directly to facilities. And two, any money that is left over in this fund, which there should be no money left over in this fund due to the shape of our facilities, will go into a separate account that will be exclusively for future capital projects. So it will just go there. So we wanted to get this in front of you. Other kind of things that came out of that meeting: the mayor is presenting his final budget to the commission on May 24th. They will go through the month of June for their first and second read, and then final vote will be the 29th of June. So we would go hopefully present something to them prior to that for their consideration. This is a pretty simple self-explanatory thing, but it basically is asking them for $10 million in reoccurring revenue. This is a draft copy that Mr. Bennett kindly put together for us, but was kind of, I'm forgetting one thing, Mr. Bennett, the growth.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So,
Yeah.
I plugged in there, recognizing that prices increase, but so does revenue. I put in a clause that the appropriation would grow based upon percentage increase of local property tax revenue. It seemed the most logical thing to tie it to.
And I believe Dr. Wingate brought that up on Monday. And so, open to any discussion on this. It's something we can vote on tonight. It's something we don't have to vote on tonight. I would be very mindful to remind this board we are on some sort of a deadline with the county budget, because they'll pass a budget if we don't put something in front of them regardless. They made that pretty clear on Tuesday. My feeling from that meeting, and Ms. Jones, you can correct me if you had a different feeling, is they wanted something to them with the budget. We've already passed our budget, but they wanted something before they looked at their budget as a whole. I believe the sheriff has requested about $6.5 million more dollars. So I think it would be in our best interest to get them something prior to when they are seriously considering their budget. So if we have any conversation, Ms. Hill, is your light on? Oh, Ms. Jones.
I was just going to remind you of that, Tucker, that they did seem like they wanted something attached to that. And when this, actually, oddly, we didn't bring this up about the interlocal agreement per se. One of the commissioners, after hearing our discussion that Monday night and reading the paper, the article in the paper on Tuesday morning, the conversation kind of came up about facilities in general. One commissioner brought it up, and then another one actually said, well, he turned around and looked at the county attorney and said, Attorney Taylor, is it possible for us to look into some type of interlocal agreement? And so, yeah, this is where we are. And so I think I left there feeling really good about that, because it was a conversation we had and it come up, and then they in turn asked for the same thing. So to me, it showed effort in trying to work together to figure out how to best make sure that the buildings our kids are going in are going to be what they need to be and safe for them. So I'm kind of excited to see what may happen.
It was an hour-long conversation, basically strictly on this. That was a very good conversation. And Mr. Bennett worked pretty fast to turn this around for us after that conversation, leaving it feeling good about it. So, Mr. Prez.
So thank you, Tucker, for bringing this up. I mean, I mentioned on Monday, 10 million is so little, it'll go so fast. I alluded to a scripture on Monday. The one that crosses my mind right now is how many of us, if we are asked by our son for bread, would give him a stone. I feel we're asking for a pebble. I am hopeful. I'm going to vote yes on this, but I am hopeful that maybe as the commission reviews this, they'll think to say, no, we'll give you bread instead, and give you something that's much more substantial. We have 79 schools. Probably all of them could use something when it comes to maintenance. and $10 million divided by 79 schools, which isn't even in the plan, is going to go very fast. So I feel, honestly, I feel like, you know, I'm always going to ask for money for our schools and our students when it's deferred. If what we can ask for is 10 million, that's what I'm going to ask for. But I hope the commission can reconsider how else they can be supportive of this deferred maintenance issue that we have. So.
Ms. Thurman.
Yes. Well, I still believe that there's a better way to go about this, but this was done, and it's done, so that it's the way it is. But I just think that a discussion between the school board and the commission about maybe us having some kind of agreement that if they put in 10 million, that we would put in 10 million. Have some kind of agreement so we have some skin in the game. And that way, when it comes budget time, we would know that we would have to come up with the money in our budget, just like they're going to have to come up with money in their budget. If they give us 10 million, that we're going to be willing to do that too. Because it's always bothered me, and I know I've been on the board a long time, and you say I should have fixed it. Well, I can't do it, you know, we can't do things by ourselves. If I could, it would have been done a long time ago. I just never have been able to get 4 other board members to go along. It will soon be 5 others to go along to get something done. I remember that we got and I called Sherry today to see if she could refresh my memory, and she couldn't remember either. But I remember at some point we got a large sum of money. I don't know if it was additional sales tax or exactly what we got. We got like a little windfall of money, and I suggested we put that into our maintenance budget at that time, and this board voted it down. So I have made attempts many times to do that, but I can't do anything by myself. If I could, things would have looked different a long time ago. But anyway, I think that we should have to come across with some money, whether we take it out of fund balance, which we could very easily do, match them with the money. If we tell them $10 million isn't going to go far, well, $20 million will go twice as far as 10 will. So I think it's something that the county commission is probably going to look at us and ask us if it's a priority. That's what I said about teacher raises and our maintenance. Those are our 2 top priorities. But when it comes budget time, this is the first year we've ever made the teacher raise and our employee raise a top priority, because we took that right off the top and did that. But we haven't taken the maintenance that seriously, in my opinion. Yep. We see it and we know it and we hear it, and yet when it comes budget time, that should have been one of the things at the top of the list. And if there's anything else left, then we can do something else with it. But that's just not the way we do our budget. And like I say, if I was the commission, I would say, if it's this important to you, why are you still have a $4 million budget that you had 20 years ago? $4 million budget for maintenance that you had 20 years ago. We haven't added any more to that than we did when Harold Coker and that county commission gave us that $2 additional million and brought us up to $4 million. We're still, is it $4 million this year? We're still where we were 20 years ago. That's on us. That's not on anybody else. So if I was them, I would come back to us and say, if you want us to take it serious, you guys need to take it seriously. That's the way I would go about it. And I still think if they're going to give $10 million, we ought to have to guarantee $10 million ourselves.
Yeah. I would say we did $15 million 3 years ago out of fund balance, and I believe, talking with Dr. Robertson, the plan is to do something probably not that large, but a little under that this year with our fund balance.
Well, and as we should.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's not. I mean, like I say, a few years ago, what if we said we would have to do 10 million every year, just like we're asking them to do?
Mr. Chairman, there's
Yes.
nothing that prohibits this board from doing that next year. I mean, you certainly can take, this is new money as I envision this. So like next year, this board could decide, you know what, let's put 10 million of our own money into it in addition to what the commission's doing. I say our in quotes because it still requires the commission to appropriate.
Yeah.
So it's not quite a shell game, but we need to understand it's all public money.
Yeah, exactly. Mr. Wingate.
I think Mr. Smith was.
Oh, Mr. Smith.
Why? Because I'm the oldest? Is that why? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Wingate. You know, I've got a young son that's about your age, Tucker, and I'm so proud of him and the work he's done. But sometimes I I talked to him about, son, you remind me of somebody that's ready, shoot, aim. And I think we do that a lot around here. And I think back to a few weeks ago, we had what I thought was a nice gesture, a great thought that we were hit with at the very last minute when we kind of walked into the meeting about giving teachers a one-time bonus, and they were appreciative of that, and because they knew they could buy a couple tanks of gas. And so I'm sure they were appreciative of that, but we had a lot of discussion, decided let's wait and let's revisit this come pay raise time, and we did. And then we talked about, well, we can give them 1%. Well, wait a minute, let's wait till we know what kind of sales tax and what the funding formula is going to look like. Maybe we can do even better. And we did, and praise God, 3%. I'm proud of that. I hope our staff is proud of that as well. Ready, shoot, aim. Now the other night, we're on the verge of sending up, voting on a balanced budget, and we get hit with this. Once again, ready, shoot, aim. And $10 million a year to do something that everybody, I agree, man, it's been kicked down the road too long. Needs to be done. We got to do something. Can't keep waiting. But once again, it was one of those things that just hit us at the last minute. A few years ago, and y'all have to help me with the date, it hadn't been long ago, that we went to the taxpayers and we asked for a pretty significant tax increase. How long ago has that been? Help me.
2019.
18? 19. And I was kind of at the front of that, really support it and push it, and got a lot of criticism, as many of us did, that wanted to see that happen. My position at the time on that particular tax increase, I believe, was the right one, and I don't apologize for it. I got a phone call last night at about 10:30, as I often do, and it was a single grandmother that's raising 3 kids. She's one of our cafeteria workers. And I've got 3 of her kids in one of my programs. And she wanted to borrow $38.13. And she was real embarrassed. She was crying. She needed to borrow the money. Doing the best she can. She is a good grandmama. And mama's in prison. Nobody knows where daddy's at. And boy, she's raising those kids. And she is a good grandmama. She works in one of our cafeterias. She also works as a cashier at the dollar store on the weekends, doing absolutely the best she can do. She said that, Mr. Joe, if you let me borrow this $38.13, what I found interesting, why didn't she ask for $40? She wanted $38.13. And she said, I hadn't had my medication since the first of the month. I said, where is your prescription? And I still can't walk. And Miss America got in the car and went and got her medication at 11 o'clock last night, $38.13. And she said, I had to make I couldn't pay my medication, and she owns a little old 4-room frame home up there in the Middle Valley with those 3 little boys. And again, does the best she could. She can't pay her bills. And we gave her a little old raise. Now we're going to take it back. Listen, I'm all for this. We got to do something about this deferred maintenance. I'm all for it. I recognize that. I just don't want us to, like I tell young Andy, let's don't ready, shoot, aim again. Let's don't do that again. We've got several new commissioners. We've got several new school board members. We've got a new mayor. We're going to have some renewed energy. Perhaps, just perhaps, if we can wait another 90, 120 days, get everybody seated, all of us get together with some new energy, new folks, new faces, roll up our collective sleeves. Maybe 40-year inflation has eased. I don't know. And maybe we can figure out a way to do this. And just maybe, just maybe, that 40 million turns into 140 million. I don't know. I just don't want us to ready, shoot, aim with this. And I'm not going to support it, Chairman Tucker. Not because I don't know. I know we need it. Our buildings are a mess. We got to do something. But I'm just afraid that once again we're ready, shoot, aiming here. And I would just like to see us slow down just for a few more months. We've been slowing down for 20 years now. So I'm not against this. I am very against the way it's been done. So, Mr. Chairman, I'm not gonna support what you're trying to do here. I'll be at your wedding. I'll bring you a wedding gift, but I'm not going to support your initiative here. Thank you.
Dr. Wingate.
A couple things. I think I said this on Monday night, and I'll just say it again. I'm all about a request for help with facilities. But I think I said this. I know I said it Monday night. I want to see a specific plan of action on particular projects. I don't think it's wise to go before our funding body and ask for an amount of money for a general fund. And there's a couple reasons for that. One, I made mention of the Sheriff's Department back 3 years ago going and asking multiple times for funding, and it was granted. In the Sheriff's Department, although I would have liked to see us be able to do the same, they went with specific requests. They didn't go and say, hey, we need $3 million for the jail. They went and said, hey, we need $3 million because we need new surveillance cameras because the ones we have aren't working. And I'd like to see us. We've we spent a lot of time, effort, and energy on facility inspection, on a report around which schools are in the most dire need of upgrade or just complete overhaul, and we know that frontwards and backwards. We've stared at it enough, and I think as a board we can not just give the commission a request for funding, but then also along with that request for funding. And I know we had a sample list the other night, and Dr. Robertson said, hey, this is not concrete. This is just an example of what we could do. But to say, hey, along with a request for funding, here are the things that within the next year we would immediately address. Within the next 2 to 3 years, here's our plan to address these things. And one of the reasons, as I've thought about this, that I think that'd be important is much of what I've struggled with in my time serving on this board. One has been just the depth and breadth of misinformation that I'm constantly dealing with, but the other is just politics. And I think when you give a specific plan, you eliminate the opportunity for and the space for political maneuvering and posturing. When you put that plan out there, we've got nowhere to hide because we've given the plan and we're accountable to that plan. And then I think you're asking the funding body to support a specific and targeted need. And they don't have anywhere to hide either when you do that. I just think, again, it eliminates some of that. It's not a vague request. And again, we could haggle over whether this is vague or not. In my mind, I just think I'd like to see it be just more targeted and specific around what is it that we're going to use the funding for. And I just think it shows a due diligence on our end and on the school system's part. So that's kind of where I am. I would want to see that before I would support this any type of agreement. So thank you.
Ms. Robinson.
Thank you. I actually wanted to circle back to Rhonda's suggestion. I thought your suggestion of doing matching funds was interesting, and just wanted to ask a little bit more about that. If that were to be something to put on the table, would we have the ability to do that if we actually were to approach this from that angle?
Yeah, I think to Mr. Bennett's point, we even though the budget shows that we put $3 million or $4 million
Yep.
into deferred
Sure.
maintenance, I would guarantee that if you go back and look at what we're actually
Yep.
doing, it's above 10 million every year. So
Yeah.
absolutely,
So,
I
yeah,
think it's a
I'm
great
very-
idea that we can do it.
Mhm.
You know, I don't know how many times over the past 2.5 years y'all have done emergency approvals for
Mhm.
roofs and
Right.
chillers, and we're sitting waiting. We've got kind of a
Mhm.
backlog of chillers right now. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I definitely think
Who
to
doesn't?
Mr. Bennett's point, it's all the public's money, and if you look at our budget, even though the budget says 3 million, we're consistently pulling
Mhm.
more than that on emergency
Mhm.
maintenance.
So I guess that kind of begs a budgeting question then. Why are we not going ahead and just increasing what we actually put in our budget for the new budget year versus just continuously leaving, X amount of dollars in budget, but then we know we're actually pulling money from fund balance whenever we have needs. Do you know what I'm saying? Like if I'm building my budget and I've noticed like, oh, there's a 3-year trend of like every year I'm spending 10 million versus the 4 million that I'm budgeting, why wouldn't we just go ahead and start actually putting into our budget a higher number? And I mean, lucky for us, we've got that money, right? Like, but if it's there, like, why don't we just go ahead and change our narrative? Because then what we really end up doing is changing our narrative for the budget, and then we also realize we actually got to spend even more than 10. We really need 20, which is actually going to bring me to my next point, like, because we have such a high need, right? Is like, to your point, like, is 10 million even really the number? I mean, because the number's not really 10, right? Like, it really needs to be like a 20 or maybe even a $30 million ask. And so, yeah, I mean, honestly, earlier today I was thinking about 40 million, but, numbers are numbers. It's just money. I think what I'm getting at is, the interlocal agreement is a great idea. Like, we even like kind of sidebarred about that on Monday night. So this isn't crazy to me. It's actually, I think, possibly really smart. But I just don't know if this is the right request. It maybe needs to be more to really make an impact. And I don't know how we get there. Because we can't match 40 million. And I actually like Rhonda's thought on that. Like, but we can't. I don't think we could do that. And I also have no clue how this would be received by the commission if it were more than 10. So I'm just kind of like speaking out loud and like giving my thoughts and asking questions at the same time. But I just think that if we're going to ask, like, why don't we make a bigger ask to make a much larger dent in our overall problem?
Ms. Hill.
When the larger conversation comes up, and I'll suggest it again for the record, that I think a small working group of people from the district, a school board member, people from the county, and a commissioner to put that plan together would be our most efficient way to actually make progress and have a plan that people can respond to, as opposed to talk around. Something that's occurred to me is maybe it's 20, but also, in as much as I'd like us to get to a place where we as Chattanoogan's and Hamilton County residents understand this is the quality of school that we want, this is the resources that we want in them, and this is what it costs, and decide together what matters to us. That within that we say this is how much money we know we need to contribute every year to maintenance per square foot, and back out of that and say, all right, this is the money we have, this is the resources that we want to offer to our students, and and we know we got to cut our square footage. It all goes together. If we know that we need to have $4 a square foot every year, and we have $10 million, we'll back that back out of it, and what does that put us at? 400,000 square feet that we can do. I don't know that math is right, but that's the sophistication of the plan I would be excited about as a taxpayer and a member of a voting body. And I think that this conversation is an important step to getting us to a table and a plan. And I don't think that any of the time that we've spent has been wasted. And I believe that this is just the slow pace of government as it is. And I think we're getting closer and closer because of conversations like this.
Dr. Wingate, did you have anything else?
If nobody else has anything, I got one more thing.
Yeah.
I'd just like to say too, this board has made teacher pay a priority. There's no question about that. The previous 7 years that or the 6 years I've been on this board plus one, this board has awarded 15% in pay raises to teachers, plus almost $3,000 in bonuses. The 7 years before that, no bonuses, 8% over that 7 years. So this board has almost doubled what's gone to teachers and in their paycheck. Thank you.
Ms. Jones.
I'm okay with the conversation about matching funds or a more concrete plan. That's fine. I do want to say, I want to clarify the narrative. Every time you talk, I don't want people in the public in our community to feel like every time we talk about adding money or adding, addressing a need in our school and needing additional funds, that it means a tax increase, a property tax increase, because that is not what that means. The county has funding. They can decide however they choose to provide that amount. They don't have to increase property taxes. They could cut a check. Mayor Coppinger made a very valid, strong point Tuesday when he talked to us in comparison to Williamson County schools. And we know in Williamson County schools, which is Franklin and all those Franklin Special District and all of that, you know, that's where Reese Witherspoon's kids go to school. I mean, hey, if anybody got kids going to school in Williamson County. And they get way more money in the BEP than we do. They have stellar schools, and when Mayor Coppinger rolled off the list of income means that Williamson County Schools gets, it wasn't just property tax. So there are a lot of ways that you can get money, funding for your schools from the community. So like I said, the county already gets money, so they could just cut a check. The commissioners on Tuesday did admit that we will never bond ourselves out of this. Even Mayor Coppinger admitted that we will never bond ourselves out of this. We've come too far deep into the hole for it to be bonded out. But I do think, I don't want people to always feel like, oh, they want more money for schools. Oh, our property tax is going to go up, because that's not necessarily the case. And I'm saying that as a city and county property taxpayer. That does not mean that. There are all kinds of ways to look at funding from the county perspective to give us what we need. But I'm okay with putting skin in the game and talking about whatever, and having, as my daddy used to say, even swap ain't no swindle, right? So everybody put something in, everybody get something out. But I do feel like we are at the conversation I heard Tuesday, I haven't heard before. And I know that Tucker and I were the only ones there. So I don't know, Sherry, was it recorded? I mean, the only board members there, let me say that, because it was Hamilton County staff there and Sherry was there. I wish y'all had been there, because it was a really good dialogue and discussion. And I really think it was some eye-opening things that came about in that conversation, and even in Justin and Dr. Stewart and Mary Ellen's presentation, that caused for people to, commissioners, and even the county mayor to look at some things and say, hey, we didn't get this all right. And so I do want to say, even in the discussion that we're having, and like I said, the commissioners and the county mayor were the ones talking about the other ways that money could be given. So I feel like we're just at this like finite amount of time. And I'm not saying vote on something tonight, I'm not. But I do think that because we are in a finite amount of time, that we should be having a conversation, because we are in a position to possibly have a better dialogue than we have ever had before with our funding body. Because I don't know, I mean, y'all were there, but I mean, it was different, y'all. I mean, that's all I know how to say. It was different. And like I said, they were the ones who turned around and said, hey, can we get an interlocal agreement if that was possible? Now, we didn't talk about an amount, so I'm okay with rediscussing the amount and getting that right. But I do think that we are in an opportune time to have a conversation, and I don't want us to miss that time.
Yeah, I'll end with the same thing. I don't want us to miss that time. And I called Dr. Robertson after that meeting, and I was like, I had no plans to bring this back up after we tabled it, but that conversation was something I had never heard from a county commission with Mayor Coppinger with us there. Like I said, the conversation was an hour long on just facilities. But I also fear is if we don't come back with them with something like we discussed on Monday, we can't get what we don't ask for. And I'll be quite frank. The way of doing things in county government are the reason we're in the position we're in. I might be ready to aim, shoot, whatever the analogy was. I'm just trying to solve some problems that haven't been solved for 20 plus years. And as far as plans, I trust our administration. I think the county commission, from what I got that conversation, trust them. There was no conversations about what are you going to use the money for, because you could go list about 1 million things to use it for. So, we don't have to vote tonight. That was not the point of this. I wanted to get it in front of you. But we're at a point now where if we don't capture this, where we have a good conversation, there's opportunity there. What does it look like 5 years from now? We're in the same position. So I just want to end with that I think timing for this is really appropriate. And we can't keep doing what we've been doing for 20 years, whether it's kicking the can down the road for 2 months, 3 months, because that turns into 2 or 3 years or 4 years or 5 years, as we know with how government works. So I'll leave it on that. Any other discussion? Okay, I will turn it over to Ms. Robinson.
Thank you, Tucker, and congratulations this weekend.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Mr. McClendon. It do change, always change.
You think it doesn't change? You think it doesn't
just wait till
change?
you do like this. Prepare to be a do boy. Congratulations, Tucker.
Well, now that he's gone. Okay. Let's get this party started.
Let's get some real work.
Okay, we're moving on to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Second.
All right. Any items to pull or discuss? No? All right. We'll call for the vote.
Mrs. Hill?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Perez?
Yes. Yes. I don't know if you're.
Mrs. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Sermon?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Dr. Wingate?
Yes.
And Chairman McClendon is absent.
All right. Moving on to administrative business matters. We just vote or
Teachers eligible?
yes, teachers eligible for tenure.
I move.
Move to
Second.
approve. Second. All right.
Okay, hold on. Mrs. Hill
Is
and then Mr.
and
Perez.
Marco. All right. Call for the vote.
Mrs. Hill?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Perez?
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Dr. Wingate?
Yes.
Great. All right. Board matters. First item, the 2023-2024 school calendar. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
All right. Looks like we have discussion. I'm sorry. Do we have a second? No? Call. All right. Jenny's got a yes. Go ahead.
Was there a second? I'm sorry.
No.
I didn't.
Oh, I'll second it, and then I want to talk.
Perfect. All right.
I would like to move to amend the calendar as published. I would like to move spring break to March 11 through 15 to fall immediately after the end of the third quarter. So if we could get a vote on that.
Okay.
If I can get a second.
March 11th to 15th?
Yes.
Second.
Okay. We got Mr. Walker as the second. Okay. Rhonda.
Okay, I just think that is too close to the time we've already been off. I mean, we're off in December.
It's the exact, it's a quarter in between. There's
Yeah.
a quarter, a quarter, a quarter. It looks like it, but it's the same. It's a quarter, quarter, quarter.
9 weeks. Okay, Shannon.
But that takes it away from the
It
Good
moves it
Friday.
from Easter.
Yeah, it moves it from Easter when, and then the reason it's usually been there, a lot of people travel during that time. I think that's the reason that we do that a lot for that
Yeah,
reason as
this-
well. And somebody has their hand up.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
If we do move forward with this idea, it would put us too few days on the calendar. We have to have 180 student days built into the calendar. So one of those being a holiday there was part of that calculation. Just wanted to say that, to say we need to bring you back an additional one or add an additional day at the end or something before we can
Need to
approve that
extend
with
the
all
school
the
year,
pieces.
basically.
Yeah.
Oh, Jenny, you got trouble.
You know what? I think it's the best thing for kids for that to be at the end of a quarter. So y'all can support it or not. All right, Mr. Perez.
I just actually, and that may be the statement I wanted to hear from the administration, as you all know the impact of that, so.
Okay.
If, maybe what, I mean, we don't have to vote on this tonight, like, there's nothing pressing.
2 years from now, it's
Right,
not next year.
for us to vote on it. We could take, the recommendation of moving it to the 11th through the 15th. We could put a revised calendar, bring back to you. We could keep this one up. If you want to throw out some other crazy ideas, like, we can take that and we can just put some options together for you to
Year
vote
round.
on. What'd you say?
Year round.
As she leaves the school board, be quiet.
Okay, Mr. Wingate.
So Shannon, the day that you were talking about, so there's there a holiday you're saying built in before spring break?
It's the Good Friday, right?
Okay, so that's after.
Yes.
I got you. Okay. That's what I was going to suggest. Like, if there was a day before, then it'd be a Good Friday, but.
Absolutely. I
Good
just
Friday.
need to check all the numbers. It could be that we
Yep.
just move the end day back to the 23rd instead
you
of the
move Good
22nd, and
Friday?
it could be pretty easy.
Okay.
We'd want to check it all.
Mr. Smith.
What actually is that date? That Good Friday date, what would that be?
March 29th.
Okay. Well, boy, this year was just too late, and a lot of upset folks over it being that late. A lot of upset folks, teachers, parents. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Do we need a motion to table the item?
If you want to table it.
I move that we table the calendar discussion.
I second.
Okay. Got Mr. Perez as a second. Yes. Yep. Call for the vote.
Mrs. Hill?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones? Yes. Mr. Perez?
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Dr. Wingate?
Yes.
All right. Discussion on testing. Mr. Perez and Mrs. Thurman. I don't know who wants. Mr. Perez, would you like to go first?
Yeah, so this is mostly discussion. I want to publicly actually thank Ms. Moody for putting up with me on the phone a couple times and expressing. I struggled. She helped me process out loud so I don't have to process here as much, and we can move on. But I struggled to figure out what the outcome in this request, other than the fact that I think there is a general consensus by parents, by teachers, perhaps by administrators, that there come times in the school year that testing feels like all we are doing and doesn't feel significant. I requested this after getting a couple emails from parents, specifically regarding that 15% testing, where this isn't on us, but also hearing from a teacher, I won't say who, but she's a second grade teacher in our school system, who said to me a comment just as she was leaving or something, well, I got a 120-minute test today. And anyone who has ever known a second grader, been a second grader, encountered a second grader in life knows that 120 minutes may not be the most effective way to evaluate. But then that brought me to a much bigger question of, like, again, what is the goal? What is the purpose? Where do we want to go? So Ms. Moody, kind of on that, again, I want to give you a chance in our conversations if there's anything that you feel is important to highlight. But the big outcome of this, perhaps, that I heard from you and that perhaps the committee. By the way, on Monday I started getting texts saying that's not true, that's not true, that's not true, and I don't think people are. I hope. I have all confidence, let me put it that way, that no one is trying to misinform anything. I think there's just often different perspectives we're looking at. So the person on the ground who's trying to get kids to sit down for 100, and I know that got broken up into 2 tests of 60 minutes, but the person on the ground who sees that hears and feels, wait, that's not actually the experience when we're on the ground. Parents who have kids crying because it's another day of just testing, from their perspective, have responses to some of those things. And so I think the goal and the purpose and the mission, in addition to what the state just requires for us, is important. And finally, an issue for me is I do think there's a larger community equity issue here where students in our public education are expected to have, this extensive evaluation method that may affect even their grades overall. It may affect teachers where other students who aren't under the same guidelines get to skip that. And we mentioned in conversation in 1 or 2 years that we chose to homeschool our children. The one thing I'll say is, boy, we do skip a lot of tests in doing that, and it succeeds. So having said that, I don't know if there's anything you want to say or add, Ms. Moody, that would be valuable for conversation here, and other people can then speak.
Sure. I don't mind to give just a little overview too. And so we did put in front of you just the assessments that we have that are required, that are ones that we choose to do. And we did have a great discussion around just why do we choose to do the things that we do here in Hamilton County Schools, or why do we, set up benchmarks the way that we do, those kinds of things. One piece that I think came out in our conversation that I just think is important to put out broadly is that part of this, as we make decisions around assessment for students, is that we want to continue to take feedback and listen, right? And so at the end of every year, what we're doing is gathering the feedback from the groups that we have in place to get feedback from. And so one of the principal groups is specifically around testing. And we pulled that principal group together with an elementary, middle, and high school representation to, I'm out of time, done, sorry.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
They're trying to get me to shut up quicker.
And heard some really great feedback actually around things that we're hearing broadly, more broadly than here, just around like our K-2 space and what is the best measure that we can use, and how can we really be creative or think differently too around how do we use the data, right? Not so much just do we test, but how do we use that data to really make those strong instructional decisions. I think the last piece here is we heard from our principals that they feel this is important. Right? They feel that this kind of data gathering is important to be able to make strong instructional decisions for kids. Could we make tweaks to it? Absolutely. We're considering tweaks every single year about how do we get this to the right place. From an equity standpoint, I think there are pieces of collecting this data that allow us to truly see our system for what it is, and to make the best decisions, that systemic level decisions, right? Not just classroom level decisions, but systemic system level decisions here around processes, pieces that may be affecting groups of students more than others. And so that becomes invaluable data. The length of it is something we can always consider, right? And try to get right. How long is too long? How long is long enough to prepare students to be ready for T and ready? And so we're never giving them a chance to try that out without being too long and getting kids frustrated. So those are things we're gathering feedback on, continuing to listen. And I might regret my inbox as I say this, but anyone is welcome to send me that feedback, right, as we gather it all, so I make sure I'm not missing any single thing.
Just a couple of things, if I can. When Marco asked this, that's the reason we always have to have, for those that don't know, have to have 2 people to request something be put on the agenda. And I
thought it was because you always agree with me on everything.
Right, yeah. We always agree on everything. But we do agree on this. But, there was a couple of things that I had some teachers reach out to me about the testing. Number one, I think that even the teachers need to know which one of the tests, and I wish we could put it out there on our website for everybody to see what testing that we do and what testing the state mandates. So they will see that they will see, you know, sometimes we don't have any choice in the matter about some of these tests.
Yes, ma'am. And we do have it on the accountability and research testing,
Okay.
but we could change the format or make it maybe more prominent. than
I
what it
did
is.
hear it's incredibly difficult to find it, so yes, something.
Okay.
So something a little bit more user-friendly. And also, some teachers, Justin, this might be to you, some schools got all of the kids in the auditorium and gave them the test instead of taking it in their classroom. Some teachers really didn't like that. They said because when one kid had to get up and go to the restroom, or somebody dropped a pencil, or somebody did something else, or coughed or something, it disrupted the whole entire cafeteria or wherever they were taking their test. And that's something I think we might just want to consider if that's the best plan, because some of them said they had never done that before. I don't know if that's a principal decision, if that's your decision, I don't know, but I think that's something you might want to look into. But like I say, I think just a lot of information is best for the parents to know which testing that we have to do, which testing we're doing at a county level, and what the testing is used for. I think that would be very valuable information. Thank you.
Thank you. Jenny, did you have a comment?
No, I just.
Okay.
I'll do all these buttons.
Mr. Walker?
A lot of buttons, a lot of
We need
buttons.
to go back to the red cups.
You know, just some thoughts and what I hear from, you know, 3 times a year for benchmark tests. To me, a benchmark is, how do I know how our students are doing and teachers are doing? And this may be so simplistic, but, you know, report cards in Power School is how we judge our teachers. We have great teachers. The benchmark test, from what I hear from more from students and families, is they feel like they're doing the benchmark only to do well on the TN ready, so that we'll get them ready and look good. To me, that's, you know, in my world, if I have company come in, I let them go see the trade, how it is when they get there. And then we make adjustments with my sales team, and here's how we got to go. I understand the importance of us trying to be as good as we can be, but the 3 times, when my grandson says, I got benchmarks together, I got to do, a first grader doesn't even need to know that term, you know, to me. And again, I may be so just out of it that I don't know, but I think there is way too much testing, and I think that we talk up here all the time about the great teachers that we have and the great leadership we have in our schools. I trust those teachers and principals to educate and do weekly quizzes, weekly tests, do whatever. We do have to have something that we gather at the end of a year. And I just think to hear my grandson talk about benchmarks, it makes me crazy sometimes. And then the ACT, I didn't realize that is required. So if I'm reading this right, it's one time each in the 11th and 12th grade. I know we set a thing up.
They get 2 opportunities, 2 paid for opportunities where they can sit for the ACT.
But we're requiring it of all of them, right? Or,
It is required.
which is a great idea, but then again, we get zinged or dinged on the newspaper and say how many counties scored this average on there. So I wish that, you know.
I do think it's a state requirement.
Okay.
For
yeah.
graduation.
Yeah, I knew that a few years ago we did as a county system, we offered it to everybody, which I think is a great idea, but we also made everybody do it. So I think it's a bad idea for the state if the state's making everybody take it. So maybe we can work with our legislators and stop that. It's not a bad idea if the child wants to take it and move on to the next level of school. I appreciate that. But benchmarks, you know, we gotta be better, and let's just, you know, teach and trust our teachers and students. And if we have teachers that aren't doing what they do, then they'll work their way out of the system. But there's a lot of testing from what I hear in my community.
All right, any other comments on that? Well, I actually have a few comments, but I want to make sure everybody else got theirs in. I think it's a great idea to put the testing on the website, like Rhonda and Marco have both pointed out. I think more importantly, because it's really important that people understand what's mandated by the state, because I do think that we are constantly being talked to about this issue, but the reality is we really need those voices to talk to our state legislators. Like, that's kind of the reality on a lot of this. I also have heard a lot from teachers this school year on the topic. I know, what was that? And I think what I'm hearing from teachers, and I'd be interested to hear if this is what others are hearing, is that it feels like our teachers are being forced to spend all of their time teaching to the test. And I think that's really taking away, like, joy from our teacher. And I'm just simply communicating what I'm being told, but it feels like the conversation is more about the day-to-day activities and the joy being taken out of what, these teachers have been used to. And a sandwich fell, or okay, good. All right, it's gonna eat it. We're having a serious conversation, Marco. So yeah, I'm getting a lot of feedback that like testing has become such a central part of our culture and like the day-to-day activity in the classroom. And I do have to tell you that as a board member and as a parent, I am really worried about this. And so I don't know if that is part of the conversation that really drove you guys to bring up this topic, but I think it's a really great thing that you guys brought up this topic. Like, I think that this is and I think it's a difficult topic because in so many ways I see the value of the testing because like, as someone who has a company that has a sales team, like knowing and benchmarking where my sales team is really important. And just like understanding where our students are like each quarter and knowing what they're gaining and learning is so important so that we can hit that ultimate goal, right? Like benchmarking is ultimately goal setting and goal hitting, right? But I think, yeah, just what I'm hearing from parents and teachers, I mean, because the conversation is coming from parents too, is that it feels like testing has become such a part of our fabric, and it's becoming a part of our culture. And I think that's what really worries me. How has testing now become part of the groundwater of who we are? And is it defining us? Because if so, I think that this board and the administration, we've got to really think through what does that mean about who we are as a school system, and how do we shift that? Because people don't want to be a part of a culture that feels like they're constantly testing all the time. And I don't know the answer to this question because we're being pulled in like two different directions, right? Like we're trying to achieve excellence and we're also trying to abide by state laws and mandates, and we're also just trying to get kids to graduation, and all of those things require testing. But, and I think that we did a good job several years ago, like under Dr. Johnson's leadership, of shifting the accountability of this school system. I mean, that was really important. It was important to me when I joined the board. But I'm concerned that it's starting to become a part of our culture and who we are, and that's scary. So I don't know the answer. I'm putting that out there as feedback and hoping that you guys have good answers for that. So
may I ask a piece of clarification?
Sure.
It seems to me I'm hearing too, like there may be a lot of work we need to do on this as well around just understanding the why of testing, and that it's not just a test to give a test, but what it can bring to our students and the culture around those tests. Is that correct?
So and I think others should answer that question. Yes, but what I'm getting a lot of feedback on that I think you need to know and hear too is that teachers are telling me that they feel like they're not getting to do the job they used to do. They feel like they are solely spending all their time prepping for testing. And I'm hearing that from multiple schools. I'm starting to hear that from parents, mainly from parents that have students that have like maybe anxiety around testing, or they feel like their child like isn't seen through testing. And it's and I think that's a result of those students' teachers constantly like maybe telling the parent like, hey, we need your student to improve on testing. I guess here's kind of my bottom line statement. I look around this room and I get so pumped that we're 5s. But why do I want to be a 5 if that's going to kill our culture as a district? Like, you know what I mean? It's such a, like, this doesn't make sense. Like, I'm so pumped that we're a 5, but yet I'm worried that that's all we care about. And we've been, like, kind of taught that it is all we should care about. So it's difficult, and I feel bad for y'all. It's a hard job to figure out how to balance that. But I am just being really, really honest.
I think, and we won't go very far, but I think the comment that I want to make, and I'm glad that you brought up the 5s. I mean, I think we have to be clear that this district has moved these 5 years because they brought in clear learning targets, aligned to standards, and the benchmarks were predictive. And so I think we have to at least start there. I think what is difficult to understand from your seat that we really experience at our seat is that the data that comes from benchmarks allows us to be responsive immediately to the child's needs. So when I hear a parent say, I feel like my child is being beat up by the assessment, I'm hopeful that we can help them reframe their idea. What it does for us is it allows us to know exactly what each child needs. Is this something that the whole classroom really didn't get? Well, we'll address it one way. But if it's something that 3 or 4 got, we've got another way to address it. And we have to have that information to be responsive.
Yeah.
And the last thing I would say is, like, when I hear teaching to the test, like, the tests are the standards. All of the curriculum is standards aligned. So everything we do is in preparation to prove what we know against an assessment. And so So I hear you with joy, and I'm all on, I'm with you. And I think for us, I think the work is to really continue to cultivate with our teachers and our principals what the use of this tool is, lower anxiety, because that's a real thing. I think
I think there's a lot of fear, like a lot of fear coming up for sure. Yeah. Yeah, for everyone. Yeah. So, yeah, totally. I think maybe you've hit it on the head. Like maybe it's like framing the point and the purpose, and how do we gain more versus feel like it's a huge burden, because that is this school year, like all I've heard. And I heard it last school year too, but it felt like it was a result of like the mixture of like hybrid and in-person learning, and that was the difficulty of it. But it feels like this year everyone is like, testing is suffocating us, and it's like, oh gosh, I just don't, I loved whenever we started doing, I was a big proponent of like benchmark, like, yes, we got to know, like, and I'm still there. I'm just confused.
I think there's, we have to recognize as well, just like we were talking about trauma for kids, like the trauma for adults is real. Like leading through the last 2 years has not been easy. And they're I would say that all 8 of us sitting here probably have trauma from the last. Teachers have trauma. So trying to take the temperature of our culture at the moment, it's not good. I mean, we just know. I mean, we spent probably 45 minutes Wednesday at our senior leadership team talking about we've got to improve culture. We've got to get a better balance of, and even maybe go a little bit heavier on culture of care to start next year than we are on the academic press. The reality is they're not opposing forces. Like you can have a culture of care, you can have a great school culture, and still have really high expectations for kids. We talk about creating an equitable school system. This is an equitable school system. To have a culture of care and to have really high expectations for every kid. And I'm about to go off script here. If we want to go back to how we were doing things,
I'm not saying that.
no, but I'm telling you, like if we want to go back to how we were doing things, the system is going to get the result that it's set up to get.
Yeah. Yeah, great. Sounds like you guys have some culture work to do. I think that we just want to make you guys really aware, and I think this is really good dialogue. Mrs. Hill.
Thank you. I think we've got some good ideas percolating around how we as adults and parents help our children think about assessment and how part of how we got to a point where we need to assess what children are learning is because children weren't learning what they needed to learn, and they were being told that they knew the information. If you want to dial up the intensity of that, one could say that children and families were being lied to, not just in any one city or state. I mean, nationally, we were not really keeping our eye on the ball. And the reality is that our children of color, our children with special needs, our poor children suffered. That's why we have all this remedial education in the upper levels. I mean, because children were told, here's your gold star, you did great, you're the valedictorian, but you can't do the algebra, right? So we need the assessment. We owe it to children to help them learn to their fullest capacity. But how we set that up in our system absolutely is important. And we've got some unpacking as parents, as Americans, because in America we are all special, we are all exceptional. And when you're exceptional, that doesn't leave you a lot of space to be crummy at something, right? And that's hard, to learn how to have to buckle down and get something right. And I can't claim to be perfect in that as a parent. My therapist says that everybody gets screwed up by their parents, no matter, even if you have a therapist as a parent, you're going to be screwed up. But we can't take our foot off the gas, or we will be back to where we were. And the reality is that we all know we are far from where we want to be. When our children who fall in those major subgroups are still, I mean, y'all, at 10%, some of the achievements, we can't let a discomfort be a thing that slows us down. We have to figure out how to work within it. And I know that I am not always popular when I talk about that, but I think it's really important, and I think it's what we owe our kids.
Mr. Wingate?
Tiffany, there's been a revelation here. I'm being serious. I think you've tonight verbalized that you've realized the tension in education.
The what?
The tension that exists in the profession of education. So, as an educator, there's the tension between setting a target, having a goal, having a process, and then providing opportunity, right, to learn and demonstrate that learning. And that is a test. And so the tension is, when we talk about teaching to the test, and that's an easy way to bemoan evaluation. Teaching to the test is when you're taking a group of individuals and providing them with information about questions. And I'm not saying the answers to questions, but hey, here's how a question might be structured, right? That's what ACT prep is. That's teaching to the test. Here's how the question will present itself, right? Here are similar questions. That's not preparing anybody to meet a standard. That's take in, regurgitate, forget, right? Teaching to a standard is grabbing hold of a group of individuals and, again, providing them, clearly stating what the goal and the target is. And then, again, providing them a process that allows them to get there, and then providing them opportunity to demonstrate that. And I don't know, I just struggle with the fear around testing. I get it. I mean, I get that some people aren't good test takers. As an educator, you deal with individuals who could walk in and sit down in a class and really not know a whole lot about it, but if it's a multiple choice test, they're going to do really well. I could do that. I'm telling you, I could walk into a class and sit down, and I'm going to pass a multiple choice test. And I'm not sit. And now, don't ask me to write about it, right? But and some folks are very informed in regards to the subject matter they're being asked or being assessed on, but then they sit down and it's real. Test anxiety is real. But one of the things that I've learned when we talk about fear and having to deal with my kids too, it's like, you know what, if I'm scared of something, that's okay, but I can't turn and run from it. You know, it doesn't mean I have to overcome it right then, but I need to kind of keep getting exposed to that a little bit, right? Or that's never going to go away. And James, I hear you too, you know, thinking about a first grader coming home and talking about benchmarks. But some of that too, though, is we've got to be able to set some of that up for them early, because when they get third grade, they're going to have to take it. And we don't have a choice, right? I mean, they're going to be taking an assessment that the state of Tennessee is then going to look at this school system and go, you're either not doing well with our investment or you are, right? And that's going to determine future investments. And so, you know, that's the tension in education. I mean, it is tough. Yeah.
Mr. Perez?
So just to summarize, please listen to the voice of the community as best as we can. Their stress, their struggles. Someone mentioned the increase of homelessness. A child who deals with homelessness does not come at his best testing. You know, everybody would know that. Students at the end of the year may not be at their best for testing, and that's when we do most of the testing, right, when they've already checked out. There's a lot there. What I do want to highlight from our conversations, Ms. Moody and Cliff, that is, though we may have differences of where we land on that tension that Dr. Wingate mentioned, I do want the public to know that in our conversations, this is not a set in stone. This is a constant moving, reevaluating of the evaluation itself, so that we can get to the right data in the right way that makes an impact on all our schools in the right way. And so, so I appreciate that. I still will probably push a little more in private every once in a while, especially around testing time. But I do appreciate that. There isn't a good intent, but please listen to the voices of community as well that are saying it's, and maybe it is because of COVID and trauma. I don't think so, because it's been my trauma for many years and then in my students' lives, but it has been added to without a doubt by COVID and trauma through that. But hopefully we can get balances that are correct.
Great. Any additional comments? Okay. We'll move on to our next item. Director of Buildings and Grounds. We've got the Normal Park window replacement.
Move to approve.
Okay. Second. Is there a second?
Second.
Please, somebody second.
Second.
All right. Call for the vote.
Mrs. Hill?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Perez?
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Dr. Wingate?
Yes.
Okay. All right, our next item, the emergency approval of vendor prior to bid opening. Do I have a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Call for the vote.
No, can we discuss?
Yes, absolutely. I'm sorry. Who has pressed their button and would like to talk?
Thank you.
No one. Oh, Mr. Perez,
No,
please.
can you just remind us what this one is?
This is for the paging system at CSLA, and it's just so that we can meet the timing of getting it installed before school starts, and so that we'll want to just be ready to go. I think it gives us an extra 3 weeks because of the timing of the board meeting and when we'll get the bids in.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Great. Any other comments? Okay. Call for the vote, please.
Mrs. Hill?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Perez?
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Dr. Wingate?
Yes.
All right. Our next item are two items for renaming of facilities. They're actually both from my district. Should I give like an overview of each? Okay, great. All right. So the
Can I
first.
say something real quick?
Absolutely.
Sorry, all I want to say is, like, do these individuals know about this? So we're
Yes,
not
they
saying-
do.
Okay,
They do
so
now.
we can say names.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep. So, all right. And I'm really excited about both of these. So, the first is the renaming of the CSAS baseball field, and the request is brought to us by a committee of CSAS parents and teachers. The memorandum says, please consider this request to name the CSAS baseball field the James D. Bowles baseball field. Mr. Bowles is presently in his 4th decade of service at CSAS. He has served in numerous capacities such as teacher, middle school athletic director, coach of multiple sports, assistant principal, and mentor principal. Jim Bowles is currently the executive principal at CSAS, a role he has held since 2013. It is our pleasure to honor a job well done, and no one deserves this honor more than the one who initiated the design and has much sweat equity accumulated into this athletic space. Do I have a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Right, in a second.
Joe.
All right. All right, and Kritza, would you like to say something?
Who seconded?
Joe.
Joe seconded.
No, I didn't, but I will.
I'm talking about Joe Smith.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, all right.
Not Dr. Wingate, Joe Smith.
Yeah, you Dr. Wingate from now on. You're not Joe anymore, okay?
All right, Kritza, did you want to say something?
I can't believe he's not here. I'm
He
gonna
couldn't
wait.
be here. He
I'm
was
gonna
going
wait
to
till
be-
he comes to board. No, Coach Bowles was my student teacher, my teacher, turned assistant principal. He was never my principal. But I'm really excited for him because I remember him doing the field. I mean, I remember that. And so this is an amazing honor for him. I'm excited for him.
Good.
Congratulations, Coach Bowles, wherever you at.
Yeah. I think he's probably watching. Mr. Wingate. Dr.
I just
Wingate.
wanted to say, couldn't be happier for Jim Bowles. All time, not just good guy, but professional in our school system who has just like in any other walks of life, the consistency that you don't see much anymore. But that guy's been at one place for all those years, and I'll be sad the day that he leaves. It'll be a sad day for arts and sciences.
Great. I'll just say a word. I love working with Principal Bowles. He is such a great asset to the CSAS community. And this morning, all the students gathered in assembly, and they announced him that the field will be named after him. So if you guys don't approve this, that's a little embarrassing. So hopefully there's enough votes. So
You don't have to go back and retry it. I mean.
yeah, I know. And we're missing Tucker, so hopefully he wasn't going to be the fifth vote. So, all right. Call for the vote.
Mrs. Hill.
Yes.
Mrs. Jones.
Absolutely.
Mr. Perez.
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman.
Yes.
Mr. Walker.
Yes.
Dr. Wingate.
Yes.
Great. All right. Now the renaming of the theater at the Howard School, and this is really exciting. There is so much happening at the Howard School, especially within the theater department, led by Mr. Rick Morris, who is back there, who's doing a great job. So the proposed name is the Roland M. Carter Center for the Arts. Mr. Roland Carter is a renowned composer, distinguished conductor, notable educator, and remarkable pianist. During his tenure at UTC, Carter has been involved with students at many capacities, from teaching to promoting affirmative action. His list of awards over his career is extraordinary. Mr. Carter is also a proud alumnus of Howard High School, and I believe he's here today with us. It is a true honor to bring this name to the board, so I'm thrilled for this. So do I have a motion to
I move.
to approve? A
Second.
Great. And then Mrs. Jones, if you want to say something.
I do. Hey, Mr. Carter. I grew up around Mr. Carter from church, from First Baptist East 8th Street. My dad's family was members there. Well, one is still there. But the work that he has done in our community, and especially in my community, this is amazing. This is an amazing honor. I'm glad that he's alive to see this honor and to hear this honor. A lot of people that are leaders in our community don't live to see them get this type of acknowledgement. And so congratulations to you, Dr. Carter. And all of those choral society concerts were not in vain. But he is an amazing artist. And so I am very excited and very glad to be a part of a momentous occasion such as this.
Mr. Perez?
So a couple things. Dr. Carter, I haven't had the pleasure of meeting you personally. I have heard about you for many, many years. And then your name has been elevated to me by that man sitting right next to you over there. I consider it one of my greatest honors to be a friend. I hope I can say that, Rick, right? A good friend of Rick Morris, a man I care about deeply, who, and the reason I want to bring this up is not only who mentioned you, and then I started realizing who you were and the impact you had made in our community and will continue to make. But also, the reason I want to take this moment is who has a incredible vision for the theater at the Howard School, and wants to really elevate the opportunity for students. Remember our proximity to some very entertainment-driven cities and the value that Chattanooga could play in placing students as incredible players in that field. And Mr. Morris, a Yale master's educated alum and a Howard alum, And I don't know what you did for your undergrad, but that doesn't matter once you get to Yale. TSU. There's a huge vision and an opportunity to plug our students into this huge media world that is so close to our doors, and so I elevate that there because I love. He has big dreams. Big dreams require big money. Big money requires really a commitment from the community, and it's the one opportunity I've gotten. So for me, it's a pleasure to both recognize you, Dr. Carter, and also thank you, Mr. Morris, for the work that you do in our community. So.
All right. Could I call for the vote?
Mrs. Hill,
Yes.
Mrs. Jones,
Absolutely.
Mr. Perez,
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Sermon,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Dr. Wingate.
Yes.
All right.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Okay, we'll move into our delegates, and it looks like we have 2 delegates this evening, Rebecca Day and William Beals II. Is everybody still here? Okay, great. I'll go ahead and read the delegate statement. I'll just read it once, and then if Rebecca will go ahead and step up. I think you guys know the drill, but if you'll watch the clock, you've got 5 minutes, and it'll give you the.
5 minutes,
Okay.
hopefully.
All right. Thank you for your interest in addressing the Hamilton County Board of Education. During your presentation, please address the board as a whole, not individual board members or administrators. Also, please do not present complaints or concerns you have about an individual employee of the school system. If you wish to voice those complaints and concerns, you should contact central office and ask for a meeting with the superintendent, since the superintendent is responsible for individual employees. Please limit your remarks to 5 minutes. You will see when you have 1 minute left. You may begin.
Thank you for your time. I won't take 5 minutes, hopefully. While serving on the library committee earlier this year, I had the opportunity to review the school board policy 4.402. In reviewing the policy, I noticed that in paragraph 1, there was a footnote referencing Tennessee State Code dealing with civics curriculum and the requirement in our state for Tennessee students to pass a U.S. civics test to earn a traditional diploma. I wanted details on how Hamilton County Public Schools is satisfying this requirement, so I emailed our student's principal with questions. Little did I know that one of the civics-related questions would bring me here to ask you about field trips. I asked our principal, does our high school have a voter registration drive? In response, our principal confirmed the schools do have voter registration drives every fall. I was provided with the name of the contact person and was advised this person is affiliated with League of Women Voters. Fast forward to the end of April. On April 27th and 28th, I saw 2 local high schools post on their social media pages showing a field trip for a group of seniors who were taken to the polls for early voting. Transportation was provided by Delta Sigma Theta sorority. It also appeared lunch was provided. Great. Subsequently, the Tennessee Secretary of State posted on their social media page that they had awarded a few Hamilton County schools with the Ann Dallas Dudley Gold Award for registering 100% of eligible students to vote. Hamilton County Schools also shared this post. All of this civic action made me wonder, why am I not seeing this type of post from our students' high school where our student attends? Were all Hamilton County students given the opportunity to leave school grounds during school hours to go vote? Was transportation provided to all students? So I emailed our principal again. In response, I was told the principal was unaware of any student leaving our high school campus to vote. If they did, they were checked out with permission by their guardian for the day, did not return, did not indicate they were going to vote. So I'm here tonight to ask just a few questions of the board, and I will email this to you guys so you'll have the questions. Based on social media posts and some other communication, I understand that Brainerd, Howard, and Tyner took a group of students from their schools to the polls to vote. Were any other school students transported to polls for voting? Did the school board know about the trips beforehand? Did the director of schools approve the trip beforehand as required by school board policy? Is the sorority on the approved carrier list as required by school board policy? Were there any other individuals who have links to local nonprofits and or sororities involved in shuttling students to and from polls for voting? Were permission slips signed and kept on file for 1 year as required by school board policy? How were the students selected to go to the polls? Was it open to all students, or was it just open to a subset of students? Was there a roster made of all students on the school trips to the polls? Did the school provide transportation via school bus? Did these trips originate during school hours? How were the trips paid for? Who were the school staff chaperones? And who ultimately approved the trips? Depending on the answers received, the school system and/or the people who are involved could be looking at violations, starting with internal DEI and HR procedures, board policy violations, campaign violations, Little Hatch Act violations, and civil rights violations. The school, as we've discussed tonight, or you've discussed tonight, the school should set a very high bar to ensure all students are protected and treated equitably. So I'm asking that you investigate the questions, provide feedback to the public as your investigation progresses, and take action to ensure anyone in violation is held accountable. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. William Beals.
Hello, my name is William Beals the second. I moved here from Seattle, Washington 4 years ago. And, you know, I never knew in a million years that I was going to be facing what I'm facing today. And that's that, you know, there was a speech on bullying in the schools. And that doesn't just go for the students, that goes for the parents too as well. You know, I have been bullied to the extent that I've been targeted, and when I say targeted, I have a piece of paper right here that shows predominantly stating that I am not allowed to go onto any Hamilton County school property as a result of a teacher's statement, a hearsay statement, not a direct related statement at all. I showed up yesterday to address the situation with the principal, to even speak to the principal, and all year long I have been denied rights to speak to him. I have contacted the school board itself, and in every single matter that I contact anybody, I am being denied rights. So in this matter, what I am addressing is the simple fact that hearsay that comes as a direct result from an individual that is participating within a known domestic terrorist organization, and I've been addressing it all year long. And in addressing that, I get this. I walk out of the school yesterday to get on my bike and to go home. And then that specific individual, an educator for this district, okay, from Red Bank Middle School, chose to sit here and write a statement against me that is keeping me from ever going on to a Hamilton County School District school where my child goes. I mean, I don't know how to say this, but that is the purest form of bullying that I've ever seen in my life. I mean, I am a concerned parent. I moved from Seattle, Washington, and I'll tell you this much. I got more respect in Seattle, Washington than I've gotten here. And that concerns me to who the Hamilton County School District is employing to take care of our children, to educate our children. That's a big concern. So what is the school district going to do about this? Because in saying this, I'm asking the school district, what are they going to do about employing Black Lives Matters as teachers? And I'm asking that straight across the board. Because I'm one of those fathers that's concerned about a situation that I cannot protect my child on your school grounds. And that's not okay. My daughter's been targeted all year long. She's 11 years old. She just started at Red Bank Middle School. And all year long I've been addressing this. and it goes on deaf ears. It's swept up underneath the rug. The reason that's so low is because our educators are sweeping this under the rug. So that is a direct violation of our rights. And I'm done.
Thank you. I don't know if I'm out of turn saying this, but I would suggest that you perhaps speak with our COO about that issue. Mr. Sharp, he's right, or Dr. Sharp. Oh, okay. Well, all right. I don't know what next step to suggest, but I'll let you suggest if you'd like to. So, okay. All right. Let's see. I believe that we just have the calendar of events. We have graduations coming up next week. And then
What was that?
graduation. Yes. Yes. We have graduations coming up next week. And then the following week is the dismissal of school. And our next board agenda session will be June 13th, and our board meeting will be June 16th. Are there any other matters that anybody would like to bring up?
Move to adjourn.
Move to adjourn. All right. So moved.